Okay, so this is part two of making hamburger patties. So, as discussed in the first video, we talked about temperature, stretches in meat, etc., and patties. So, like we said, one of the benefits of making burger patties yourself is that you know exactly what's going in there. Now, I'm just going to switch this stove on so long so it can heat up a little bit. Now, one of the main things is when making burger patties, if you do it correctly, you don't need to add a lot of stuff. Now, a lot of recipes will say like add breadcrumbs and eggs and onions and all that kind of stuff. So, main thing I want to get across to you is that the moisture content inside a burger is important. Now, breadcrumbs obviously absorbs that moisture, and you know it will help to bind the patty. Yes, correct, but it's not necessary. And especially people gluten-free and all that kind of stuff. And most of the time, when you look at burger patties that you buy in the shops that's pre-made, you'll see maybe there's gluten or anything like that. So you know there's a lot of stuff that's added into there. Grain-fed beef. Is that gluten-free? I don't know, maybe. Anyway. Okay, so the reason why we're adding stuff today, I'm just going to grab some olive oil. The reason why we're adding stuff today is not that it's necessary, but because you've asked me regarding a recipe that we used at GJ's back in the day. Now, the base of this, obviously, ken miyaki. I always believe, give credit where credit is due. You know, I've learned from other people tons and tons and tons. So this is pretty much the base of what we've done over the years now, or what I've learned from Ken as well. But again, if Ken watches this, eventually maybe he's probably thinking, what the hell? Anyway, so what I'm going to do is the pan, you just want to dry. You don't want a lot of olive oil. So what we're making here is just a little bit of additives to flavors and stuff. It's not to bind the meat. Hence also why we drained the blood previously, so that we can make sure that there's not moisture too much in the burger patties, because then it is going to fall apart when you cook it. Now the actual science of it, when you make the patties, I'll explain a little bit. But what I've done here, so go to the ingredients. I've finely chopped onions. I did this before, like I see the pros do. They've got everything ready. But anyway, very finely chopped onions. How to do this? There's a lot of videos about that. And this is one medium-sized onion. Now, medium is a relative term. I would say that is a medium-sized onion, one that you can't just quite fit. Close your fingers. That's too big. Anyway, 2 cloves of garlic. So we're going to add this into the pan and start frying this up. Now what you want a little bit of caramelization on the onions. You don't want to fry it to crisp in pieces, but also you don't want it to be soggy. You want to actually cook some of the moisture from the onions. Onions contain some sugar and water. Now I'm going to make a video again on caramelized onions. Not now. Today I'm just gonna start frying these off a little bit. So while we're going through that, we've got some other ingredients that we're looking at: Worcester sauce, tomato sauce, and also chutney. Now this chutney I've made myself. Maybe I'll do a video on it. I don't know. Maybe. But Mrs. Ball's, you should be able to get Mrs. Ball's chutney in the UK. Don't use catering grade chutney. Whatever you want to put in here, you want to make sure that it is good. Olive tomato sauce has always been, a good. There's so many other stuff that just tastes really, really artificial. If you want to make something yourself, do it properly. I'm going to take out pepper and not salt. Now again, there's science behind that, which I'll explain later, which is important. And then some red wine. Now this is about 100 mils. So before you shout at me like some activist, how dare you cook with red wine in this crisis time, let's just say I didn't exactly stockpile toilet paper. Anyway, so let's get back to this. So this is slowly cooking off, but again, not too much. And then there's freshly chopped parsley. Now, we're not going to use all of this, but I'm going to add on to this. Okay, so while this is still caramelizing and cooking a little bit, to save talking time later on, let's just quickly discuss what happens when you work with meat and you don't make sure that your meat's cold, etc. So a lot of the mistakes people make when they work with the mince and they put stuff and add stuff into it, the meat's warm. Even at room temperature, the fat can slowly start breaking down. Now your hands are warm, so whenever you work with your hands and you move that, you mince that patty or whatever, the fat actually starts melting a little bit. Now what you want is when you've got really nice chunky pieces of fat in there, mixed in between the mince, when you cook the patty, that fat actually melts and all the flavors goes into the meat, but also that binds the meat. Okay, so that's why when we're talking about mince and making your own mince, a lot of chefs and really know a lot, people out there, people that knows a lot, will say that you should grind your beef in different sizes, and you get like chunky bits, and it's taking it too far. And plus, I don't have the different size. I don't have one size thing. Okay, so as you can see, the onions are starting to stick to the pan, and maybe use an extractor fan at this point. I'm just going to put it on too high because actually I don't mind the smelling. If you mind the smelling when you cook, and the vapors that's going to come from this, especially when you add the wine, use your extractor fan. I like the smell. Anyway, so we're going to look at onions. All you want is the onions when they start getting a glazed look and a slight brown. You don't want black, and then you know the moisture is starting to come out of the onions, which is a good thing. You don't want too much moisture. Okay, now also I'm using a non-stick pan, which is also good because you want to eventually get all those flavors out. And I'm using a wooden spoon. I normally don't use metal cooking utensils anyway. I've experienced that using metal, it's not bad for pan, but also using metal on metal when cooking and stuff, you get a bit of a flavor. I just don't like it. Maybe that is a myth. Maybe it's just me being me. But anyway, so now this is starting to caramelize nicely. So now what we're going to do is all those little bits and pieces that are sticking to the bottom of the pan, we're going to deglaze using the red wine. Now again, what I say is, forgive me, and it is good wine, so don't cook for something you won't drink. There isn't a thing that you have to use old wine, and there's some acidity levels, but I mean, you use what you've got. I'm just fortunate enough that, yeah. Okay, so again, now what we're going to do is we're just going to let this soak, and we're going to make sure that all the alcohol cooks out of the wine. And at this point in time, I'm going to add black pepper. So what I said about, well, I didn't say it, why I did black pepper, salt. Okay, another tip actually, which is I should use, should lead by example, as they say. When you're grinding black pepper, don't actually do it over a steaming pot or a pan, because the steam actually clogs up little bits and pieces, so you're actually not going to get the pepper out. So it is good to actually just grind the pepper separately. Okay, so why don't we add salt? So that's about a teaspoon worth of black pepper. Now, as I said, with the same thing that happens with the fat that melts when you're working it with it too much. Salt, obviously, as you know, extracts moisture as well. Now, you don't want the meat's got its juices. That's what you want to retain. If the moment you add salt to it now, before when you're mixing it, and again, what I said about temperature is you're going to mix it and you're going to let the patties set eventually in the fridge for another 2 hours. I'm only going to make these patties to fry them tomorrow. So I'm making it a day in advance for good reason, but it's so that the patties can set. If you use salt, that's going to start draining all the juices from the fat and from the meat, which means the moment that you're actually frying it, whether it's on a flat top grill, gas grill, fire grill, doesn't matter. The moment you cook it, or in a pan, the moment you cook it, it's going to start tasting like rubber. Then you might as well just go and buy a McDonald's. So it just defeats the purpose completely. Okay, so if you look at the onions, you can see the nice color there. Maybe that's a better light. I hope you can see that. But yeah, so it's still sticking to the pan, but all the red wine has cooked in. Now at this point in time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually switch off the heat, because I don't have gas. You're lucky if you've got gas, you can control the heat a lot better. Now that's about 2 tablespoons worth, and maybe a teaspoon's worth. I'm just going to mix this all together. Now I'm taking this off the heat because what I want is I don't want if you remember the tomato sauce has also got like sugars and stuff like that in. It's got vinegar and all that kind of stuff. So if you're going to burn that, you're going to have a very, very not lekker tasting burger patty. I can guarantee you that. Okay, so what we're looking for, as you can hear, is more like a reddish kind of pasty looking onion thingy. Okay, so while this is still hot, because this is hot, it will continue to cook. So I'm going to leave this off because I don't want it to cook too much. But again, so that is more than enough. But again, we're going to let that cool off completely before they let that go close to the mince. If I put this into the mince now, it defeats the purpose completely, and it's just going to cook. So that's got to cook off and dry off, or cool down absolutely completely. Once it's a little bit cooler, I'll probably put it in the fridge. But I'm first going to let it cool in the pan so it can cook all the way. I'm not going to dish it out anywhere else. Okay, so, and also the chutney is already cooked. I'm going to wait until everything is cooled down, and I'll put the paste to the mix it with the meat. Then I'm going to add this and the chopped parsley. Alright, so I'm going to have to quickly prepare my hands, get it nice and cold, and then we're going to start off with the homemade mince that I've made to show you how we make that burger patties. That's our mince in the fridge. Go ahead. Okay, so beef mince, clean chopping board. Now what I've done here is I've got a tray that I've covered with cling film, and on the cling film I've just put some olive oil, and I've made a slight cover. It's not soaked, it's literally like a teaspoon and a half that I've put in there. Then when I say I've prepared my hands, I can wash it with cold water, but like I just cleaned up a few bits and pieces. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly still mix it through. That's it. That's about as much as I want to touch it. Now to weigh it, now you can decide if you want 200 gram patties or whatever. The things that you need to remember is that whenever you're cooking a burger patty, especially because of the fat content in there, and because of the other one, we've got other moistures in there. The moment you cook it, you're going to have shrinkage. So if there's too much moisture, too much fat and stuff, and you think you're making a Big Mac, you might end up with a slider. So yeah, so 200 grams normally for me a good, a decent size. Okay, so normally I don't weigh I do by hand. I've made quite a few, but it's roughly, to give you an idea, it's about that size if I make it in a small ball. And that's probably almost as much as I want to touch it. I don't want to touch it too much. So just give it a good squeeze, let everything bind. Now to make and shape the patty, if you don't have a patty maker, then it's so easy with the hand. Just slap it on there and squeeze it with the palm of your hand down. Okay, till you've got an even thickness. And I'm going to bring this a little closer so you can see the thickness of this is probably about maybe 1.5 centimeters. So that's around the thickness that you've got. As you can see, it's a bit now rough around the edges, like most people. I forget my own cooking tips. Anyway, so we don't want this little oaky to slide around all over the place. And to shape this patty, all I'm going to do is on both my hands, and we are going to just, while squeezing it, just tap it a little bit on the side. Again on the other side, and almost like making a little wheel, spinning wheel. Now it's building up again. That's about almost too much work again, and I'm just going to squeeze it down to the shape that we want. And that's it. That's how much you want to work with the meat. Okay, so now I'm going to put that on, and I'm going to put it there. So I'm going to finish the rest off, and I'll get back.
See the storm set in your eyes, see the foam twist in your side, and I wait for you. Slide his hand and twist her face, and the better of things she makes me wait, and I wait without you.
Okay, so fairly evenly sized burger patties. Now if I remember correctly, we've used about 850 or 860 grams of beef, about 150 of fat, so that should give you a kg. Now if you want to really be pedantic, you could weigh it out and you should get 5 burger patties out. So these are probably roughly about 250 each, which I don't care because I like a big burger. So it's up to you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to now, remember we covered this with oil, just going to cover a little bit of olive oil on top, wrap it with cling film again, and then put it in the fridge. So you probably noticed that there's no salt, no pepper, it's just the mince, because I don't need any other flavoring. I want to taste that dry aged flavor on it. It's going to sit nicely, and when we cook this, and the method we're going to cook it, there's no issue there. Cool. Taken out the other mince, the ones that we bought from Delico, pot belly on R44. Anyway, this is for my old grandmother's old things. It's beautiful. Anyway, yes, it was in the fridge. The paste fridge. So what we're going to do is, as you can see, the colour is nicely returned. So I'm going to put this in there. Wash it. That's my dishwashing machine, deluxe. Okay, so now we're going to add paste to it. Okay, so the chutney, it's a bit of a spicy, sweet flavor. I mean, you can leave this out if you want, doesn't matter, but roughly about a tablespoon, dessert spoon, pudding, I don't know. spoon here. No, I've got actually a spoon. So from the chopped parsley, I'm going to only add 2 and a biggie bit full of the parsley. This we can use later on for whatever. Okay, so the only time I'm probably going to use a metal spoon. It's just easier to mix with. It's nice and clean as well. So, and yes, you can put this in the fridge, so it's cold. So now I'm just going to mix everything in. Okay, so everything is roughly mixed together. So because it's been in the fridge, obviously a lot of the meat, like it really comes tight together. And I've spread out most. I'm going to give this a quick turn around with my hands. Not too much again, you know why. But just to work it in a little bit. And this is not fast forwarded, it's literally just to break it up a little bit. Not too much, just get it in and ta-da, done. Okay, so now we're going to shape the patties. Again, I'm just going to have a feel for it. Now, like I said before, these are probably going to have more moisture, so a little bit more shrinkage to it. So I'm not going to make this bigger patties, but I would rather maybe let it cook a little faster. So it's not going to be as thick as the previous patties. The previous ones we probably want to let sit. So anyway, it's also because it's 2 different methods of doing it. So these ones, before I make the patties, I need to get the sheet out. So I'm just going to loosen this a little bit.
Pretend it means getting. Don't say a word while we dance with the devil. You brought a fire to a world so cold. We're out of time on a highway to never. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Don't say a word while we dance with the devil.
Show you the thickness. So yeah, there we go. Little wide part of your finger. I don't know. Cool.
Hold on, oh yeah, oh. Hold on. Don't say a word while we dance with the devil. You brought a fire to a world so cold. We're out of time on a highway to never. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Don't say a word while we dance.
do the last roll of cling film and wrap the story up. Just another reminder, yes, this is going into the fridge. If you're doing it on the same day, give it at least like an hour or 2 hours before you're going to fry them. But then also make sure that you cover all the sides, because you don't want air coming, because otherwise you're going to get a hard, because the air is going to start dehydrating the meat and making it. So like I said, we're only going to do this tomorrow. I'm just going to give it a good cover. Good luck making your patties, and the video 3, we're going to be frying these babies. Otherwise, hope you're well in the UK, and chat soon.